But my real hot take, I got to tell you, I think this is now the most accurate unit on the market. This box, in terms of my sitting down, getting guitar tone, miking up stuff, is more perfectly emulating and capturing that experience of sitting at a desk with an amp, with some outboard gear, with the microphones mic'd up in the next room than anything else. Because no other unit is giving me that accurate tone stack right now with these other things and the ability to capture that amp. Hello there. My name is HW. Thank you so much for watching Tone Junkie TV. I just picked up this Strat and thought, what is the wackiest thing I could play? What's like the most, and there's that. So I'm sitting here with my good old friend, the Kemper. How you doing? Love you. And I'm going, wait a minute. This liquid profiling update, I've been playing with it for days, for months, weeks really. And it works. It works. I'm going to tell you that. It works. This feels like my 1973 Super Bass. Here's my sound. I'm going to put it on the middle position. Super Bass, nice and big in the bottom, but bright because we're using the bright channel. We come over here, up that presence. Up it even more, up that treble. We're going to get harsh now. It gets that Marshall-y thing, and that is our EQ, right? That's our EQ. If I up this treble and I up this presence, it does the Marshall version of that. But I don't always want to be limited there. And so that's where I've talked about in past videos how, is liquid profiling better? Is it more accurate? Well, I got to tell you, after playing with this whole unit, with this liquid profiling, it's convinced me of two things. Okay, ready for the hot take? Two things. One is, the more accuracy we get from the tone stack here, I personally think the more imperative it becomes that we use other tools like a graphic EQ or like a studio EQ, which is what I'm going to use. Now listen to this. So here's without it, here's with it. Now I'm going to turn on my studio EQ. It's adding some bottom end, some mid-range, but now I can throw it on the bridge, you know what I'm saying? And I can really get like the because if I want control over anything other than upper mids, which is really what this is going to give me, this super bass is going to just give me these upper mid. Wait, let me turn off that X one. Listen to the mid-range control I'm getting. I'm getting tons of that upper mid-range. But what about the tube screamy goodness, right? What about the lower mids? So that's where I think you need a studio EQ. Now, here's the real thing. I'm just going to say it. A lot of people go after authenticity, but you've never heard an amplifier that didn't have extra post-production EQ. So as the years have gone on, I've become such a fan of using a little bit of, I have a 32 band graphic EQ that I've used at times, and I have a JDK Audio studio style EQ with 2 shelves and some two mid-range frequencies in the middle, which is basically like what you get here in the Kemper. I'm a huge fan of it, and I use it all the time on profiles. I use it because sometimes you get a mic placement that sounds really good, but it's just a little sharp. It's a little maybe too present. Or sometimes you get a lot of heft and loveliness out of like a thickness, out of a nice dynamic microphone. But working in a little more ribbon, it comes with good and bad, right? It comes with the qualities of the ribbon. Sometimes it can come with a little too much heft in the low end. And so maybe I just want to bring up the presence a little, or I want to take that low end and I want to work in more ribbon, but I want to take that low end and just shelve the whole thing 2 dB. You know, that's a nice way, 3 dB. That's a nice way to cut that bass without losing the bass information, but that's a nice way to do it. And that also gives me control over the mid-range like I don't get on an amplifier. So I'll tell you this, using this liquid profiling, where I now have a tone stack accurate to my plexi, it brings up the issue that the plexi is not the most accurate, and really what it does for me is it makes the X block as an EQ and as being used as a studio EQ all the more important, because now I can up 1600, that upper mids, but I can also come down here at 610, up those upper mids, or those lower mids, excuse me, and now on the bridge of this Strat, here it is without it. Now with it. It's beautiful stuff, and it's super useful. But my real hot take, I got to tell you, I think this is now the most accurate unit on the market. And I just got to say that because if you want to talk about accuracy, you kind of got to qualify what that means. There's some null tests out there that might say, oh, there's really only one thing that does it, that captures an amp perfectly, and everything else, there's a little bit of like, oh, there's a little low end cut on this one or this one. There's a mid-range push or on this one. And that's sort of the narrative that's out there. And I don't disagree with those null tests and their findings. But I'll tell you, as a player who mics up a lot of amplifiers, who has a 73 super bass, I sit down, I plug it in, I mic it up, and that would be like changing my IR, which I'm going to be talking about IRs a lot more in the future because in a way I've seen the light and I really am enjoying my time with IRs. I've been making a whole new collection of IRs. It's taught me a ton. I'm creating the perfect the perfect collection of IRs because I never liked IRs much, but now I'm creating ones I like. And it's taking a long time. It's taking a lot of experimenting with EQ and stuff, but there's something there. But you can change the cabinet. But me in real life, I mic up a guitar speaker, and that's kind of like changing the IR. And then I sit down and I'm playing, and my amp's mic'd in another room, and I have the EQ, this EQ, and I have to work with the idiosyncrasies of this EQ. I have to have a super bass where I'm cutting the bass a lot, and a lot of times I'm cutting the presence way down if I want it to be thick, and I'm boosting the mids up. I do that on my Marshalls. I do that, and so it sounds like this. Because that present channel and that normal channel are already so bright and so dark on their own. It's really having the bright cap or not, in a Marshall. And So I'm fighting that a little bit with this EQ that doesn't work that well. And so then I have my mic placement. Do I have the mic placement right? Yes. But then all the fine tuning from there comes from right here. And so I'm having this epiphany right now where I'm realizing when I sit down with the Kemper, I am even faster than before able to get my tones that I want, and I know how to fix things because this setup feels exactly like my real world setup. It feels exactly like sitting over at my desk, not on this video set. It feels exactly like sitting down, having my 73 Super Bass, having these controls, I know what they do, and having my JDK audio right here, I know what it does, and having my graphic EQ if I want to employ it. I know what it does. And I know how to use those. This box, in terms of my sitting down, getting guitar tone, miking up stuff, is more perfectly emulating and capturing that experience of sitting at a desk with an amp, with some outboard gear, with the microphones mic'd up in the next room than anything else. Because no other unit is giving me that accurate tone stack right now with these other things and the ability to capture that amp. Sure, you can model a generic plexi. It's not going to sound like my 73 Super Bass. It's not going to sound like my 68 Purple Plexi. It's not going to sound like my collection of, Dumbles here. It's not going to sound, you know what I mean? Now, maybe it sounds exactly like that Plexi. Maybe it sounds exactly like the 68 Purple Plexi, which is behind here, if I sent it to them. But it's not going to sound like my amp with authentic EQ here and my studio EQ settings and my graphic EQ settings, which I can turn on or off. And I find myself now sitting down to the Kemper, basically doing it in that order. I sit down and I'm getting my sounds out of the Kemper now in the exact same way. I used to rely more on this EQ here and the definition control. I'm actually not even relying on the definition control really anymore. I mean, I can still use it. I can still come in here and use it if I want, but I'm not really doing anything with it lately. I haven't touched it. It's just, I know so I have someone who I'm used to working with the idiosyncrasies of these amps, have my workflow. This EQ followed by the studio EQ. First the mic, then sit down. Is it okay? Okay. Now I'm wrestling with this EQ, and then I'm fine tuning with this EQ. And now that's exactly my workflow on the Kemper. In all fairness, it's not my workflow on ToneX. It's not my workflow on Quad Cortex. It's not my workflow on anything else. In that way, I think this may have just become the most accurate unit on the market, which is kind of an interesting thing because it feels like I'm doing the exact same. I don't know. I don't know if everyone's going to have this experience because I'm having to do it all in the same workflow that I've had to do it in the analog world now, completely. Even to the point that all the deeper editing stuff in the Kemper, maybe I'm like, I'm not even thinking to go there. Now I have it there. So what does that mean? How does that play in a workflow? I don't know. These digital tools bring up more questions than answers. So I'm not claiming anything. I'm not. There's no. The liquid profiling isn't some more accurate profiling technology or something. But to me, this now feels just like my analog setup, and that blows my mind. Actually, that blows my mind. So